We're going to start with some pre-meeting things, so we'll be after 1 o'clock by the time we actually call the meeting to order. My name is Doug Fuller, and I'm sitting as the chair today. And before the meeting starts, we've got some housekeeping details to go over, which have to do with the meeting being virtual as opposed to being in person. So thank you for joining the Washtenaw County Road Commission for our June the 2nd virtual board meeting. Before we start the meeting, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Number 1, if you would like to make public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand virtually by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raised Hand button at the bottom right corner of your screen. If you dialed into today's meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. Number 2, the chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as a technical support for users on their computers or smartphones. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our systems administrator will help you troubleshoot. Number 3, the audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to WCRoads.org in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is posted on WCRoads.org, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer. At this point in time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is the swearing in of 2 new road commissioners. Mr. Pert, would you like to take charge of that, please?
Okay. So Joanne and Gloria, I'm just gonna swear you guys in, and you can just repeat after me, and I'll just do the oath of office in pieces, so it won't be too long. All right, so I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Michigan.
And the Constitution of the State of Michigan.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
And that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Road Commission.
The duties of the Road Commission.
In and for the County of Washtenaw.
In and for the County of Washtenaw.
State of Michigan.
State of Michigan.
According to the best of my abilities.
According to the best of my abilities.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you two.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Pert. Now that we have a full board of sworn road commissioners, I'm going to go down the roll call for attendance. And currently speaking, as I've said before, is Chairman and Commissioner Doug Fuller. Commissioner Barb Fuller, are you here?
Present.
Commissioner Rod Green?
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas?
Present.
And Commissioner Joanne McCollum.
Present.
Managing Director Cheryl Siddell.
Here.
County Highway Engineer Mr. McDonnell.
Present.
Director of Operations Mr. Harmon.
Present.
Director of Finance Dan Ackerman.
Here.
Excellent. And to our 2 new road commissioners, again, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Moving on, we have, as the standard practice, begun our board meetings with the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Since we are hosting this meeting virtually today, instead of the recitation of the pledge, we will start this meeting with a moment of silence to honor all those helping to battle the coronavirus and for those who have been killed by this terrible disease. I'd like to have a 10-second moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, we need to have an agenda to work from. Could I have a motion on the agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We will, this and every other vote in a virtual meeting, we have a roll call vote. So we will start with Vice Chair Barb Fuller.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas.
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes.
And the chair votes aye as well. So we have an agenda. Moving on to, we have two sets of minutes to vote on today. I'm going to actually ask, when we get to the point of voting, I will ask those commissioners that were actually at that meeting to vote on it. So the first board minutes we need to consider today are the meetings of the regular meeting of May the 19th, which starts on page 1 in our packets. Could I have a motion on those minutes, please?
I move acceptance of the board meeting minutes of May 19th, 2020 as presented.
Could I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve those minutes as presented. Those in favor would vote aye, starting with Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Aye.
And Commissioner Doug Fuller, who votes aye. Well, we have approved those minutes. Then on page 17 of your packet, excuse me just a minute, I'm having, there we go, having technical difficulties with my screen. On page 17 of your packet are the working session minutes of May the 19th. Again, could I have a motion on those minutes, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the working session minutes of May 19th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Aye.
And Commissioner Doug Fuller votes aye as well. Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allocated 3 minutes to address the board. Emily, do we have people that have indicated to you that they'd like to speak?
Doug, or Commissioner Fuller, not yet. I'm going to read the instructions one more time because we had a few people join us after your initial introduction, if that's okay.
Fine.
Okay, if you are viewing this meeting on your computer, to virtually raise your hand at this time, first make sure you've clicked join audio, then raise your hand by clicking the participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the raise hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. I will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time, and then I'll announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. I don't see anybody, Commissioner Fuller, that has raised their hand at this time.
Okay, moving on. We'll go directly to the written communications, which starts on page 21 in your booklet. And I'm wondering if any of the commissioners have any comments about any of the written communications in there, starting with Barb.
Yes, if possible,
on page 25, Ann Farmer wrote regarding a question with respect to dust control. And I didn't see reference made to that in the staff report. And I just wondered, has she been contacted?
It's a very good question. Managing Director, Cheryl? Any idea?
I do not know whether or not we responded to her. I can follow up with that if we did not and provide her a written response.
Thank you. And I know I couldn't see the date of her letter. The date stamp was incomplete. So I don't know whether this came in yesterday or 3 weeks ago. So it may already be taken care of. My second question, pages 37, 38 of the packet, the CRASIF check amounts. There were 2 issued. One was to cash and one was to be applied towards our premium for next year. Do we have amounts on those checks? It wasn't in the letter.
And do you know the amounts offhand, or do we need to follow up?
I was waiting for Dan to comment.
I mean, if not, I'm just curious how we're trending, right? Was it more or less than previous years?
Well, if you recall, the mod factor is a key for a lot of that. And our mod factor for the first time was under 1. But since it's kind of crept up a little bit, so we are trending a little bit higher. I want to say it's about annually, I want to say it's about 300,000, but I can get back with you with more exact amounts if you'd like that.
I'd just like to know how we're doing, and that's a pretty quantified measure of how we're doing.
Right.
You know, certainly we're doing better than years past. If you recall, our mod factor took a drop for several years. But I do believe it's crept up a little above 1. I don't have the exact number, but that determines if you're paying a premium or if your mod factor is below 1, then there is a discount.
Thank you.
And it's compared to all other road commissions.
Understood.
And Cheryl, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
No, I think you covered it. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, yep.
Dan,
I'm sorry. Does that 300,000 represent? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
I would just like to say, Dan, if you would please put that in your report at our next board meeting, would satisfy everybody, in that way they could have it in their packet. Rod, please go ahead.
Yes. My only question was that $300,000, does that represent the total CRASIF dividend?
That actually represents how much the organization pays on an annual basis for workers' compensation.
Okay, because I noticed on page 37 that it made reference to a CRASIF dividend. Is that the same thing or something different?
That's something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how much that dividend is?
No, I do not, but I can get that information too.
Okay, just wondering.
Yep.
And for those of you that are concerned with that sort of thing, McChrysip has not yet decided on what our dividends will be to the stockholders this year. That will be a subject of our next board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And I wouldn't expect a great deal of money from McChrysip, because our income is both from the members as well as our investments. And I think all of us are aware that the investment have been a little sketchy lately. So anyway, any further comments on written communications? Okay, since we had no public comment, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on commissioner and staff follow-up to public comment. That which moves us down to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the consent agenda for items 1 through 5 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This again will require a roll call vote. Commissioner Barb Fuller?
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you. At that point, we'll move on to the reports section of our agenda. Do we have any county commissioners with us that would like to report?
We do. I have Commissioner Schenk and Commissioner Jamnick. I'm going to unmute Commissioner Schenk first.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I wanted to say congratulations to the new 2 road commissioners. The Board of Commissioners was very pleased after a long process that included a significant amount of public input and public outreach to unanimously appoint Commissioners Yamas and Commissioner McCollum. And we're very confident in their ability to effectively represent the people of Washtenaw County as well as the motoring public. Congratulations. I think I just said that. It's exciting to see you here. I wish you all the best and look forward to working with you as well as all of the road commissioners to serve the people of Washtenaw County. So thank you very much for serving. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrank.
Thank you.
And I guess if I wasn't going to say this, but I have to say to all the staff at the Road Commission and everybody at the Road Commission, considering the amount of rain that we got, I think what it was it a week ago? The weather's changed so much, it's hard to know anymore. You did an incredible job of dealing with it, and I appreciate it. That's all. Thanks.
On behalf of the staff, I will say thank you, Commissioner, for noticing. Anyway, Commissioner Jamnick, are you there? Would you like to comment?
Hold on one second, Commissioner. I think try that again. We're just getting her unmuted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
You can, good. I just want to say good that you have 2 new people. I think you're great choices in them. I know one of them, having worked with her at Westville, so I just want to say both of the ladies welcome. And music always makes us better. I will assume both of these ladies will be a great addition to your board. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth Ann.
Okay.
Thanks, Roseanne.
By the way, since Ruth Ann mentioned ladies, it occurred to me the other day when the board made the appointments, I believe this makes the Washtenaw County Road Commission the first road commission in the state to have a majority women members. And certainly we are the only board that is majority female that also has a female managing director. I think there are, Cheryl, and help me here, I think there are actually only 2 other managing directors that are women, are there not?
That I can think of offhand, yes.
I'm getting one up there in the northwest corner and one in Kalamazoo. And that's the only 2 I can think of. So once again, Washtenaw County is leading. So anyway, with that, I'll move on to road commissioner reports, and we'll start with Barb Fuller.
Thank you. On the 27th of May, I, along with the rest of the commissioners as well on different shifts, I might note, attended an orientation and received the new laptop, cell phone, and signed the IT use policy for these new devices that we have been provided with. I want to thank the managing director and IT for equipping us so thoroughly and providing the support that I needed to get using them efficiently. On the 1st of June, yesterday, I participated in the practice session so that we were all comfortable with a Zoom meeting format. I want to extend kudos to Chris Quinter of IT for making all of the computer upgrades possible and easy and seamless. Emily Kaiser for her work on the education communications with respect to the upcoming road and non-motorized millage that will be on the August ballot. And then the incredible binder that she put together with materials for all of us as an orientation packet for being board members of the Road Commission. And then of course, Carrie Ryan, because Carrie makes everything go. She answers every question that I've ever asked her, and has made working with digital signatures very easy. Just the staff in general through this whole pandemic challenge have been incredibly resourceful, innovative, and congenial above all. That's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. And by the way, I will borrow on what Barb just said and say what she said, because we do have an incredible staff, ranging from the guys who cut the grass to Carrie Ryan, to our managing director, and everybody in between. We have an extraordinary group of people. So anyway, with that, when's the next Parks meeting, Barb?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
And we will have an interesting meeting because, as many of you know, the governor yesterday, late, said that now summer camps for kids can proceed. And at our last Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, we directed staff to cancel all of them because we did not know how we could provide those kinds of activities safely for the kids and their families that they go home to. So I'm looking forward to hearing what kind of innovative suggestions the staff will have next Tuesday for us to consider, because there was great disappointment in the communities that these summer programs for the kids were going to be canceled. Not only do we provide recreational activities, but we feed the kids when they come to camp. And we were all very worried about what happens when those summer camps aren't available, not only for the children, but for the working parents who rely on them as a place for their kids to have supervision and healthy food and fun activities during the summer months. So I'll probably have something interesting to report next time.
Thank you, Barb. Rod.
And I also join my fellow Commissioner Bob Fuller in the wonderful job that the staff has done in introducing us to the new equipment and making sure that we're technologically ready to handle it. Also joined the June 1st virtual meeting where we get to meet our new commissioners. And once again, I say to them, welcome and congratulations, and looking very forward to working with the both of them. And like the chair has mentioned, I take pride in the fact that Washtenaw County is making news that we're one of the few with the majority road commissioners that are women. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you, Rod. Gloria, any comments you'd like to make so far?
Yeah, I want to thank Chris and Cheryl and all of the staff for welcoming me, and commissioners. It's an exciting time. I want to thank the commissioners who have confidence in me, and I hope to live up to that. I'm humbled by the appointment, and I look forward to helping this team move things forward. And Chris was extremely helpful on the technology portion of this. So I also took part in that June 1st meeting, which was eye-opening. So as I continued to learn everything, and I've had reports from staff that I've been poring over, boy, there's a lot to learn, but I'm eager to learn all of it and come on board and find how I can be helpful to everyone. So I want to say thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Gloria. And I'll wear that out, but I'll say it again. We are really looking forward to the input of our two new commissioners. Speaking of which, Commissioner McCollum, any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, thank you everyone for welcoming to the board. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very thankful for being appointed, and I like all of the orientations I've had. I look forward to the rest of the orientations, and I look forward to working with everyone on the board. So thank you very much.
Again, thank you. Moving on, Managing Director. Cheryl, would you like to begin your report?
Sure. There's two things that I'd like to share with you, and then I will turn it over to the directors. The first is that yesterday we all received a very pleasant surprise from the governor that the stay-home order was lifted effective immediately, which of course caused us all to quickly run and read this new executive order.
Yeah.
Say, what exactly does that do to us now? So the good news is that it refers back to the previous executive order that had talked about all the safety practices that were required for workforce. And so from an operating standpoint, that really has very little effect on us. As an organization, we already had most of the protocols in place. The one area that continues to change for us are the screening questions. So we keep trying to stay on top of that one, and I think we actually have that one down right, at least for right now, which is a good thing. So I think we're in good shape with respect to the reopening, or as we've said, we never really closed. So the moving forward part of our plan is certainly in effect. And continue to monitor the different executive orders and things that take place, and we will modify our plans to reflect whatever else comes on down the pike with that. So that was definitely, I think, good news for all of us. If nothing else, a nice mental break to think that that had been, you know, that order was lifted. The other thing that I wanted to share is that last week there was in the House Transportation Committee, there was testimony taken. The County Road Association was one of those who did testify on Senate Bill 518 and 519, which has to do with the federal, the purchasing by the state of the federal buyout program, basically. So all the local agencies have the opportunity potentially to sell their federal dollars to the state of Michigan, to MDOT. For those who are not quite familiar with what that means, whenever anybody has to complete a state or federal project, there are a lot of rules and regulations that are the strings that are attached to those federal dollars, which especially for some of our smaller road commissions and who are not familiar with that process, they may incur quite a bit of additional cost in bringing on consultants, and frankly ends up almost not being worth having those federal dollars. So they are very interested in a program such as this where they can sell their federal dollars to the state. The state has the ability to carry out that type of work. That is routinely how they do their work. And in exchange, they would receive MTF dollars, the gas tax vehicle registration dollars that are a little bit, there's a little bit more leeway into how you actually administer a project. That's a very brief summary of what all that program would entail, but the legislation does appear to, at least at this point, be moving through the House. For the Washtenaw County Road Commission, we're certainly supportive of the legislation and the ability to have that program in place. We are fortunate to be in a position and to have staff capable of carrying out those types of projects on a pretty regular basis. So I don't know that we would necessarily participate in the program, but to have it there is certainly a benefit should we ever want to take advantage of it in the future. Just wanted to bring you up to date on the status of that. And if we hear anything else, I'll certainly be happy to bring you up to date. Are there any questions with respect to either our reopening plan or the federal buyout program?
So yes, I have a question. So Cheryl, does this mean everybody comes back into the house to work?
No. Fundamentally, what's in the executive order is if you have the ability to work remote, that you should continue to work remote. So we have an awful lot of our office staff who still have the capability to work remote, and we are encouraging them to do so.
Okay.
Put together a schedule that would accommodate approximately 25% of the workforce here in the building. As soon as anybody enters a road commission building or facility, they are expected to have all the appropriate PPE, practice the social distancing, wear the face masks or face coverings so long as they're not in their own office or workspace, which could be a cubicle or actually could be a vehicle as well. But we still are trying to practice social distancing as much as possible because that's really still one of the best protections that are out there. So by limiting the capacity of the building, we feel that that is our best success on being able to accommodate that social distancing component. So we started with a plan or a schedule that looks like 25%. And certainly if we have to make modifications to that, we can and we will. We've also done other practices like limiting occupancy to common spaces like break rooms. We've turned off drinking fountains, certainly continued the increased frequency with respect to disinfecting, general cleaning, looking at one-way patterns and how we just even circulate within the building, trying to, again, be able to maintain a lot of those social distancing. So no, it does not mean doors wide open, even from a staff perspective.
And I know I've mentioned it before, but have we heard anything from the governor with respect to this provision that virtual meetings are allowed under the Open Meetings Act?
Yeah, we've not seen anything additional on that.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Well, with that, I'd be more than happy to hand it over. Dan, do you want to start us off with respect to finance and IT?
Sure. If you could all turn to the last page of the board packet, page 62. That's a summary of our Michigan Transportation Fund receipts. That's from the gas tax and license and registration fees. And we always compare on a month-to-month basis the current year to the previous year. So we did receive April's numbers, and they are down 11%. Normally, if I saw an 11% decrease, I would be pretty concerned. But that was the first full month of the stay home, stay safe. Cheryl and I and maybe others attended a County Road Association economic impact of COVID webinar a couple weeks ago. And they were saying, I believe for April, that people were driving about 50 or 60% less than typical. So the fact, and people obviously were not buying new vehicles. So the fact that it's down 11%, I was expecting more like 20%. So certainly I would rather it be an increase. That being said, when April of 2020 is down 11% from April of 2019, I guess I feel comfortable with that. It could have been worse. And certainly just a reminder for our budget, we did decrease our Michigan Transportation funds by about $3 million from our initial budget to account for the stay home, stay safe. And certainly with the good news from the governor, hopefully people can be out and about a little bit more. And, our trend maybe will tick upward a little bit. So certainly that's something that we monitor very closely. We've received estimates from the state of Michigan. We've talked to our peers, and we feel comfortable where our budget is at this time, but certainly we can make adjustments if need be on that. Also in finance, the commissioners have seen all the township agreement reports or agreements from operations. And the first billings can go out in June, so that's something the finance department will be working on, preparing those, allowing operations to review that, and then submitting those. So we'll have hopefully 20 of them fairly soon sent out, and we'll start that process as well. As far as IT, commissioners, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I did want to again acknowledge Chris Quinter. In a very short window, he secured, and he placed his orders, received, and set up all the laptops and cell phones for all of you, and also somehow found time to have some great training for you as well. Hopefully everything's working well for you, and certainly if you have any questions or concerns, we would be more than happy to help you with that. So that's about all I have, unless there's any other questions for me.
And Chris found time to get his dog to the vet.
Okay. Did not know that, but good.
I have a couple of questions, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
How many vendors are still holding out with electronic payments, Dan? Are we making progress on that front?
So Barb, we're not really pushing it per se. We are providing that as an option for our vendors and for our new commissioners. Last year, we went to the option of electronic payments for our vendors, you know, kind of the way of the world. And we kind of started with some that were reaching out to us to say, yes, we would rather receive payment electronically. So those were easy ones to set up. A lot of them were contractors that we deal with and consultants, a lot that are set up for that. So Barb, we haven't really had a hard push yet. Certainly our goal would be 100% participation. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to that level, but we are providing letters to encourage vendors to participate, but we have not even offered this for a full year yet. So, you know, once we get maybe closer to 50% participation or 75, which we're not, we might make a harder push. Keep in mind, some of our vendor payments are to citizens, say for inspection releases and so on. And some of them may not be set up or feel comfortable with that. So we may not get to 100% participation, but certainly we're going to do all we can to make this a viable program.
And then I have some IT questions. I see that the Southeast Service Center replica server has not yet been achieved. What's the anticipated install date for that?
Well, if you recall, that was our ideal disaster recovery that we would have in place. So we do have backups, adequate backups in place. In order to have a full backup where if something were to happen at the main yard, and say we could go down to the Southeast Service Center and basically plug in computers and go, that would require a significant investment. So the first thing we have to determine is the budget available for us, and you know, amongst all of our other priorities. So that would be it would be nice if, but right now, you know, currently we, you know, haven't necessarily found the funds or really the justification in order to move forward with that. You know, that's something we could talk about at a future working session, but we kind of put that on hold at least for now.
Okay, and then the fiber upgrade at the main building, is the delay on that similarly?
The delay on that is because of the COVID. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. No, the delay on that is primarily related to COVID, and you know, it involves other contractors coming out and so on. So we've kind of put that on hold. Plus, a changeover of that nature with everybody telecommuting the way they are, we don't want to have any disruption in service. So there are a few things that need to be done prior to putting that in place.
Okay, sounds like you have a plan though.
We do, yes.
Great, great. That's all.
Any other questions?
For Dan?
Yes, for Dan.
Okay, Jim, would you like to bring us up to speed on operations? Obviously, we survived the torrential floods that we had a few weeks ago, and we're already looking at starting chip seal operations this week.
That would be true. Good afternoon, everyone. And from the operations department, on behalf of the operations department, I extend a warm welcome to Commissioner McCollum. I look forward to orientation and getting better acquainted. So I wanted to bring to your attention our last 2-week staff report cycle on pages 53 and 58 of your booklet. Happy to answer any questions on that detailed report. Cheryl mentioned the chip seal program. We have a very robust program in front of us, and in fact, looking to start this Thursday, June 4th. on Whitmore Lake Road. We've carved the county up into 5 regions. Phase 1 involves a number of seal coat projects here central to our main yard. Then we'll be moving in a counterclockwise direction. Phase 2 would be in the Chelsea area, Phase 3 in the Manchester area, Phase 4, the southeast part of the county, and then finishing Phase 5 in the northeast part of the county. It's a little contrary to what we originally intended, but just a tremendous workload between engineering and operations, and schedules are adapting, and so we found that the program that I outlaid, it makes the most sense at this point in time. And we do have the ability to be versatile and adapt to weather conditions and any other scheduling conflicts. A little over 100 miles of seal coat. That, again, being a preventive maintenance activity that we perform on our asphalt pavements in order to protect and extend the life, preserve those investments, and extend the life of those investments. In addition, in partnership with the engineering department, Mike Bernbeck, our operations engineer, works for me, managing our countywide annual overlay program. Cadillac Asphalt is our overlay pavement resurfacing contractor, and has substantially completed the haul route improvements on Pleasant Lake Road and Ann Arbor-Saline Road. Ann Arbor-Saline Road being more recent. Paving is completed, and Mike informs that the contractor will be placing the aggregate shoulders along Ann Arbor-Saline Road this Thursday. So we've been excited to work in partnership with engineering to complete that really important corridor in the middle of our county. Cadillac is presently working on Waterloo Road. That's a county millage funded project, part of the current 4-year millage. And they're doing pavement repairs, what we refer to as HMA, hot mix asphalt wedging. So it's correcting where the road edge has fallen away. The road no longer has a uniform crown. So Cadillac is helping restore the crown of the road in preparation for our millage funded seal coat, which will happen probably later this month. In addition, and this one hits close to home for one of our new road commissioners, we also have investments on Dorset and Tyler Road. We're excited to perform that work, again, part of our county millage program. And Mike Bernbeck again reports that Cadillac Asphalt is programmed to commence the milling of the existing pavement. They'll take that top layer off on Monday, June 8th, and then the paving is expected to commence that next day on June 9th. All of this, of course, is weather dependent, and sometimes the contractors run into their own scheduling conflicts. So if we need to provide an update, we'll certainly do that. But Mike's been working with Emily to get media advisory out, and Cadillac, its team, will be handing out doorknob flyers, notices to the adjoining property owners along both those streets to inform them of the upcoming work. So we're excited to proceed with that. Dust control program is well underway. 18 of our 20 townships opted for 3 applications of salt brine to suppress dust this season on the local gravel road system. And 8 townships have been completed with the first application, and 5 others are underway. So we're making very good progress. I'm very pleased with the district work on the dust control, and that speaks to Commissioner Barb Fuller. You had referenced Mrs. Ann Farmer's correspondence and written communications, and Petersburg Road certainly is a local road to the benefit and credit of York Township. They're one of our townships that opted for 3 applications of brine. Our district foreman, Trevor Fiesel, began York Township local road control last Thursday on May 28th, so that just started. The grading that Mrs. Farmer references is necessary due to the wear and tear on the road from traffic that she speaks to in her letter. So we'll be following up here shortly with the dust control, and they'll suppress that dust. So I'm pleased to report that. And again, credit to York Township for their partnership and helping make that a reality. 2 more things, and then I'd happy to answer any questions. We've currently programmed just under 100,000 tons of limestone and gravel road resurfacing Some is for primary roads, some's in partnership with our townships. You may recall last year was our high water mark. We had 183,000 tons. That is literally a mountain of gravel and limestone. We are excited to proceed with that work. And in fact, that's underway. We've completed Grass Lake Road in Sharon Township recently, again, a county millage funded project. And we're about to commence work on Wellwood and Eli Road in Manchester Township. And finally, I wanted to again recognize our township partners. Again, the board today, by consent agenda, approved 3 agreements with our township partners. There are more on the way, actively working with them on. Total estimated project investments with our townships is now up to $6.1 million, and the township share of that is $4.1 million. This is significant investment at a local level, and again, I'm just very excited to work with our township partners to help make those investments a reality each year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Road Commission Board would have of me.
Jim, do we have an update on the Grove Road sidewalk project?
I would defer to Matt on that, Commissioner Green. That is being handled by our engineering department.
Okay, good deal.
Yes, sir.
I have
Jim?
a question. Go ahead, Joanne.
Thank you. Jim, what's the time frame of how long they will be working on Dorset and Tyler?
I expect that work, Commissioner McCollum, could be completed within next week, within just a few days next week. The project's fairly straightforward, and according to Mike Bernbeck, indicated I think there's 1 sidewalk ramp upgrade to bring that up to American with Disabilities Act compliant. So it'll go fairly rapidly. Weather and the contractor running into some scheduling conflict are the only things that could disrupt that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, I'd like your perspective on the fact that we didn't do the face-to-face annual meetings this year. And you seem to have done just fine without the investment of those evenings with the various townships. Have you gotten any feedback from the townships, the trustees, the supervisors about the lack of face-to-face with the commissioners? Obviously, you and the foreman and the superintendents have been in touch with them. What's the take on all of that?
Thank you for that question. The feedback that I've received is that the townships are really literally in the same boat that we are, and they've had to adapt to a virtual reality as we have, and through Teams meetings and Zoom and a lot of telephone conferences, we've been able to conduct business effectively. Email has probably been the core of all of this, the back and forth on clarifying proposals, refining estimates, and confirming what they would like to bring forward to their boards for consideration. You're right. We have been able to accomplish all of that work, and I think there is benefit, certainly, with in-person meetings, eyeball to eyeball. There's absolutely a benefit to that, and I enjoy meeting with our township partners and fostering a good relationship. But I think mutually we've just adapted to this reality and we've made it work. So I think that that shows promise for the future. It certainly is a more effective use of everyone's time, the way we've done it this spring. But we do follow the township's lead on this. Some of them very much would like us to come see them, and it'll probably be some hybrid going forward.
I just know every spring we've got 20 townships that we need to visit, and it's a challenge, both in terms of scheduling and simply logistically getting to all of those meetings. And I would offer for staff and commissioners to think about whether we just spread visits out over a 12-month period rather than compressing them and focusing strictly on the annual agreements. Maybe it's our opportunity to look at modifying the approach, the intent, the purpose going forward.
I agree. I look forward to those conversations.
Yeah, Barb, I think that is quite timely because we had already internally started that conversation, and I think we had that as a working session topic like January-ish, and that was pre-COVID, already saying start reaching out. And I had a couple of meetings with a handful of township supervisors to sort of start that process of examining what information are they looking for, where are we hitting the mark, where are we missing, what would be more useful to them. Type conversations. And I think that this just highlights the fact that those two things don't need to be married. So I think that Jim and his staff have done an excellent job of getting those township agreements in place, which just, I think, highlights the fact that we've got very good relationships with our townships. Those district foremen in particular are key to those relationships. But that's one piece of it. And so they've been able to really continue to do business. Granted, it's been different, but have continued to do business on that side of it. I think that we absolutely need to have those meetings with the townships to make sure that we are continuing at all levels to have good relationships and determine what other information they may be needing from us or vice versa. But I think that can be a separate conversation, and to your point, maybe spread out a little bit so that we're not all completely exhausted by the end of April.
Boy, that conversation seems like it was a million years ago. I remember it well. Yeah, it's just, thank you.
Well,
Perhaps this virtual meeting medium also allows people who couldn't join face-to-face an opportunity to join these sessions. So I think it's good from that standpoint as well.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions for Jim? All right, Matt?
Yes, good afternoon. I had provided a list of projects to the commissioners via email after our Zoom meeting yesterday. And certainly it's a long list, and I can just go over some of the highlights of things that are active in construction currently. Commissioner Green, you had asked about Grove Road, that sidewalk grouting, essentially elevating that sidewalk back to the elevation of the curb has been completed. So that work is done. We're going to continue to monitor any movement with the steel sheeting retaining wall and or sidewalk. So we're getting proposals from geotechnical firms to provide that monitoring, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it. That was a significant unplanned investment, and we want to make sure we're monitoring its successful progress. So with that, other projects that we are wrapping up, Chubb Road paving did get completed. There are numerous punch lists and restoration items. That's a project in Salem Township that we're partnering with, paving a local gravel road funded by Salem Township, and that work is set to get complete here in the next month or so, but the paving is done. Other paving work that occurred, the Washtenaw Community College Pathway Project got its final course of hot mix asphalt on the pathway running along Huron River Drive. So that's an exciting project. The restoration and punch list yet to be done, but getting close to wrapping up there. Another pathway project out near Chelsea, along M52, the Huron-Waterloo Trail. That project is about getting ready to start their HMA paving. As you may be aware, there was a road closure for the tunnel going under 52. That tunnel work is still ongoing, and the paving's about ready to get started. So that's nearing completion. That's another large carryover project from last year, but one that is of significance and certainly is a great partnership example with County Parks and the Huron-Waterloo folks. Jim mentioned the coordination with paving of the haul route improvements and paving for the Ann Arbor, Saline, and Wagner intersection. That paving is complete. We're still working on building the traffic signal at the intersection there at Ann Arbor, Saline, and Wagner. Restoration items and punch list items, pavement marking, still yet to be completed. We're probably a couple weeks away from reopening that intersection. And the Carpenter Road resurfacing project in Pittsfield Township between Ellsworth Road and Packard Road is ongoing. We're installing some rain gardens in cooperation with the Water Resource Office. They are assisting in inspection, but they're paying for that rain garden. And that work is ongoing along with some drainage structure work ahead of the paving getting ready to commence on the outside lanes. Right now, traffic is restricted and closed the outside lanes for both northbound and southbound of that 5-lane roadway. Some of the projects that we are gearing up for and are getting ready to start in June. Pontiac Trail at 7 Mile is the Roundabout project up in Salem Township. That will be a full closure. We anticipate work to begin next week sometime. Again, depends on the weather and starting of contractor schedules, but we'll be issuing a advisory when that work is nailed down. But that road closure is anticipated very soon. The next project, once the Ann Arbor, Saline, and Wagner project wraps up, we'll be diving into Textile Road at Woodland Drive. That's a roundabout project in cooperation with the city of Saline. The detour route for that project actually goes through the Ann Arbor, Saline, and Wagner intersection, so we need to have that project open. So obviously a lot of project coordination going on. And then our very significant project close to the office here on Miller Road, Miller at Wagner in Scioto Township, will be constructing a single-lane roundabout, converting that stop-controlled intersection, and just west of there, replacing a bridge, both in the same contract. I did get word from MDOT that that award is pending, but the State Highway Commission did approve awarding that project, and now they're going through and they've gotten contracts out to the low bidder, Fonson, and so there'll be some work to get that award done. We anticipate that work commencing mid to late June. On that project, we do have a virtual Zoom meeting to inform the public of the construction phase of that project. We've done 3 other Zoom meetings, been pretty successful at getting participants. We do put out our message boards ahead of those on the job site to let the public know we are going to have a Zoom meeting. We also do advisories for that and mailings to folks within the work zone. So that Zoom meeting is June 10th at 10 a.m. And we'll look forward to any of you joining us. There'll be a brief presentation about the project, and then there'll be some Q&A from the participants as well. With that, I'd like to open up with any questions that you have, any of the projects that I talked about or that were on the list that the engineering department is managing.
I've got one, Matt.
Sure.
Signboards on Pontiac Trail to tell people that they're going to have to find a new way to work are going to be up when?
I'll certainly talk to Mark McCullough. He's our project manager on that, and I can get back to you. I'll send you an email and confirm the date when those are going to get out there. We typically like to see those a week in advance of the closure.
And here we are.
Yep, and here we are. Yes, exactly. And so some of the delay for that contractor getting set up, they had hoped to start earlier, but I think some of the delay was a result of the rain and the lost week of production, so to speak, for some of their subcontractors. The prime on that project is Cadillac.
Just because there's no obvious and easy detour available for that particular project. You know, everything along Pontiac Trail is absolutely critical because people do not have an obvious, easy alternative. Because that road runs diagonally. And by the way, I'm sure you noticed, but I will mention, since we talked, you brought up the fact that we've finished up the paving on Chubb. I noticed last week in some kind of a notification that Oakland County Road Commission, or Road Commission for Oakland County, is paving Chubb Road from their southern boundary up to, I think, all the way to Grand River. So that's what, 4 miles maybe? I don't know whose money they're using for that. Anyway.
I have a question about the vandalism on Wagner Road and Saline Ann Arbor Road. Any progress on identifying the perpetrator?
I'm not aware of that one. I apologize. Someone else had that?
The damaged concrete, Matt, do you know if the sheriff's department?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So that was Ann Arbor Saline Wagner Road. The concrete, that was ultimately someone violated that road closure, drove through the work zone, and ultimately drove in some concrete that hadn't finished curing. We had to remove and replace that concrete, and that was at the cost of the contractor. There was a police report generated. I'm not aware of any findings from that police report. So unfortunately, that's something that the contractor had to bear the cost of, and it was something in the magnitude of $15,000.
Thank you.
No problem.
Matt, with respect to the Grove Road project, do you anticipate the shifting of the steel wall to be a continuing situation?
No, my hope is that the settlement that we saw, which was about 2 inches for the sidewalk, we had a lot of engineering fill that took place last year, and there was some settlement that was a consolidation of a lot of that engineering fill. I know the contractor, per our inspection and per our contract documents, did all the effort necessary to compact, but even with that, because of the vertical amount of fill was over 15 feet, there may have been some settlement because of that, the consolidation. We are going to monitor that steel sheet retaining wall. That was a 40-foot wall section, and ultimately it's designed to withhold and up to 15 feet of exposure of that wall, and we don't have that near. Most of that wall is still in the ground, and so my hope it was just consolidation of material that caused that sidewalk to slump about 2 inches and 2 inches away from the curb. And we think that we're going to continue to monitor, and we're going to rely on our experts in the geotechnical field to help us evaluate that, but we don't think we'll see any significant settlement. Ultimately, on the other side of the wall, on the lake side, where you will see some settlement. We know that ultimately those slopes are very steep, and they're going to have a tendency to self-correct over time. We are starting to see that a little bit over by the park, but the retaining wall will hold the road and all of the infrastructure that's behind it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? All right.
I have one
Well,
question.
with that, staff is complete.
I'm sorry, I do have one question, Matt. So
Sure.
I was looking at your project list, and that you have quite a bit going down. but the project that is on Carpenter and Ellsworth, it looks like it's going to go well into July with the expected of several delays. Are the several delays you anticipate are going to be weather related?
So Carpenter Road, that's a resurfacing project. It is funded with federal funds, and ultimately we do have a contract completion date that the contractor is required to complete the work by a calendar date. They, by contract, can request extensions of time. One of the extensions of time certainly is related to weather. If there's a significant amount of rain during a given month, they can request that extension of time. The contract allows for 4.5 rain days per month during the work week, and ultimately they can request that if it goes beyond that. The other one that's very unique to this year is the COVID-19 situation. MDOT has given us some direction that if there's a resource shortage or supply of labor and material or equipment is related to COVID-19, we are to grant them a time extension. So that's something that they have to document, we'll review, but ultimately we would grant a time extension for anything related to COVID-19. We don't anticipate any significant delays on Carpenter Road. It's a fairly straightforward project. Once we get the drainage structure work and curb work done, the paving is simply just milling and resurfacing. So it should go fairly quickly. So I would anticipate July, the end of July is a realistic completion date for that project, but I can certainly give you an update next board meeting.
Great. So I do see that their calendar date is 7/15. Is that the contractor's date? Date of completion says it's 7/15.
I'd have to look that one up of when that was, when the completion date is for Carpenter. I don't recall offhand, but I can get back to you. I'll send you an email.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Any other questions? Okay.
One other thing I will say, for any of those large significant projects, we do provide project updates. So if you're interested in any of the projects of significance, you can sign up and subscribe using your email, and I'd welcome to do that. Emily and our project managers do a great job of kind of getting information out as we're completing the various stages of projects. And if there is a significant delay, that would be something we'd send out as well.
Thank you, Matt. That's a very good point. All right. Mr. Chair, I believe that staff has completed their reports.
Thank you. At that point, I'd like to ask someone to make a motion for adjournment. Hello?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. Commissioner Bardenfuller.
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Aye.
Commissioner Yamas.
Aye.
Commissioner McCollum.
Aye.
And Commissioner Doug Fuller votes aye. We are adjourned, and thank you all.
Thank you.